Hey friends, happy Sunday and welcome back to another week of What's for Dinner. If you're new here, hello and welcome. If you don't know, I have shared these What's for Dinners weekly since 2018. And I just share them to motivate you to cook more for your family and to give you some new meal ideas. That's the whole reason I started them, was to motivate myself to cook new recipes and to cook more often because we were eating out too much and spending too much money. So this is a way to help my family save some money, and by sharing it with y'all, it just motivates me more to cook different things. So if you like these kinds of videos, I hope that you will subscribe down below. There's also a playlist link down below with all of the videos over the last 4 years. But now let's go ahead and get into this week's What's for Dinner. Friday night, we had a one-pot Philly cheesesteak pasta. This was actually inspired by one of y'all when I made one of those homemade hamburger helper recipes the other week. One of you mentioned that your favorite hamburger helper is actually the Philly cheesesteak one. So then I got looking for Philly cheesesteak pasta recipes, and I don't think this is probably anything like the hamburger helper one because it's got, like the onion and pepper in it, but it was delicious. And I'm glad that we tried it because the family loved it. So I started off by warming up a little bit of oil in my skillet, and then I'm going to cook up some chopped white onion and then also some green pepper. My green pepper was actually frozen in the freezer from the last time I bought peppers. So I just cooked that until it started to get a little bit tender. So once my onions and peppers started to get a little bit tender, then I added in 1 pound of ground beef with some pepper, salt, and garlic powder, and then just let that continue to cook until the veggies were super tender and the meat was fully browned. Then I added in 3 tablespoons of flour and just mix that around really well and let it cook for about a minute. Then I added in 3 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce and a tablespoon of ketchup and mixed that around really well. And then I added in 3 cups of beef broth, 1 cup of milk, and some more pepper. And then I brought that mixture to a boil. And then when it came to a boil, I added in 2 cups of dry pasta. The recipe called for cavatappi, but I couldn't find that at Aldi, so I just used some shell pasta. And then I reduced the heat to like a medium low, covered this and simmered it for 18 minutes or until your noodles were tender. For me, it did take right at 18 minutes. Once the pasta was done, I stirred in 1.5 cups of diced provolone cheese and 1/2 cup of mozzarella cheese, and then I just sprinkled this with some dried parsley, and it was ready to serve. This was super cheesy and delicious. I feel like it doesn't look the best, like the color of it isn't the greatest, but it tasted really good, and we all really enjoyed it. The next recipe we tried this week is called Cheddar Bay Chicken Bake, and the original recipe for this had you sauteing these chicken breasts in a pan with nothing, like literally no seasoning. Don't do that, please. Please season your chicken. So I'm using this like all-purpose seasoning that has salt, pepper, garlic powder, and onion powder, and then some Italian seasoning. I'm just using that on both sides of the chicken, and then I got them in my cast iron pan with a little bit of olive oil and just seared them on each side for about 4 minutes. They don't have to be cooked all the way through because they are going to be going into the oven. Now in a bowl, I am mixing together some of the Red Lobster Cheddar Bay biscuit mix, so just the whole package, with 3/4 of a cup of cold water, 1/2 cup of shredded cheese, 1/2 cup of green onion. And I didn't have cheddar cheese, which is usually what you would use. It's Red Lobster Cheddar Bay biscuit, but I didn't feel like shredding cheddar, so I just used mozzarella. I thought it would be nice because we're using marinara sauce, so I thought mozzarella would work fine. So I just mix that together and then set it to the side. And then I'm getting out a baking dish and using about half a jar of marinara and just spreading that all over the bottom. Then I'm going to take my chicken that I've seared and just kind of dip it in the sauce so that we've got some sauce on both sides of the chicken. And then we take that biscuit mixture and spread that all over the top. Then this goes in the oven at 400 degrees for 25 minutes. And then the Red Lobster Cheddar Bay biscuit mix comes with a little package of seasoning that we're going to mix with some melted butter, so half a cup of melted butter. And then when this comes out of the oven, I just brush that butter mixture on top of the biscuits. We just had this with a can of green beans on the side. A salad would also be really good. The only other thing that I would change about this recipe is I think next time I would cut my chicken into like bite-sized pieces, because with the biscuit mix being on top, it's kind of hard to tell like where one piece of chicken stops and another one starts, so it was kind of hard to like plate up. And I think if it was just like little bite-sized pieces of chicken, it'd be easier to spoon out. But it was really good. We all really liked it. Sunday night we had steak and potato soup. If you saw my vlog earlier this week, you have already seen this recipe. So I would leave that link down below for y'all if you're interested in seeing this. It is delicious. It's made in the crock pot. It's got stew meat in it, potatoes, carrots, some beef broth, and some steak sauce. And we just had that with some crusty bread. Highly recommend going and checking out that vlog from earlier this week because you don't want to miss that recipe. Monday night we had some stuffed crust pizza. I don't know why, but I just really wanted the pizza to be stuffed crust. So I've got my pan here and I've sprinkled on a little bit of cornmeal, and then I'm taking this dough. This is not my homemade dough, but I will leave the recipe for that down below. This is actually some dough from Aldi, and it was my first time using it, and it was really good. Definitely worth the 95 cents so then I didn't have to make the dough. And I'm just spreading that out as much as I can all the way across my pan, bringing it all the way to the edges, and making sure I have enough room to kind of fold it over some cheese sticks, because once I've got this all spread out, I'm going to take some mozzarella cheese sticks, and I kind of like pulled them in half so they weren't as big and round, and I just lined those around the edge of my pizza dough and then folded the edges of the dough over. And then I had Elijah in here helping me top this pizza. We put on some marinara sauce, lots of mozzarella cheese, and some pepperoni. And then I took the Chef Chamois garlic butter and brushed that on our crust and then sprinkled it with some Parmesan cheese. And then this went in the oven on 450 for about 12 minutes. To go with our pizza, we just had a salad for those of us that like salad. Lily, of course, just had some fresh veggies on the side. And to go with our like stuffed crust, we all had some marinara on the side to dip that in. It turned out exactly how I wanted it to. And I definitely recommend picking up that dough from Aldi to make pizza night easy. Tuesday night, we had a family favorite, and that is shrimp fried rice. Super simple to make this homemade, and I've shared it so many times, so I didn't bother like doing it step by step, but I will leave a video link down below if you're interested in seeing me make that step by step. Wednesday night I made some ribs. So I picked up this rack of spare ribs for I think 50% off the other month from Aldi and just threw it in the freezer because that's like the only time I make ribs is when I find them on sale. So if you don't know, anytime you make ribs, you need to remove the membrane off the backside of it. It's edible, but like it makes them hard to pull apart and it makes it like tough and chewy once it gets cooked. So it's really easy to peel off once you get it started. I usually use a knife to kind of peel it up a little bit and then use a paper towel to grip it and then just rip it off. Then I'm going to season my ribs all over with some, I think I used some grilling seasoning this time. This is a new one that I'm trying out that I'll be talking to y'all about in a couple of weeks. We're just trying it out. And we did actually really like the flavor it gave these ribs. But you can use anything. Most of the time I just get like some dry rubs from Kroger, like in the clearance section. They always have like different spices on markdown. And usually that's what I use. But I just get that all over the ribs on both sides and I rub it in with my hands. And then I'm going to cover my ribs tightly with some aluminum foil and then get this in the oven on 275 for about 3 hours. So after 3 hours, I pulled them out and they were done. And so then I like to drain off all of that liquid that's on the pan. I just dump it in the sink. And then I brush on some of our favorite barbecue sauce. We're using the Kansas City one from Aldi. Just brush that all over the ribs. And then these are going to go back in the oven for about 10 minutes under the broiler. Let that barbecue sauce get like nice and bubbly and delicious. And here is what they look like when they're done. So good. And you just use a knife and cut it apart. These were spare ribs instead of baby back ribs, so there was more than just like rib meat on here. I ended up like cutting off the rest of the meat and like shredding it up and using it for pulled pork, which you'll see in next week's What's for Dinner. But to go with this, we just did some Instant Pot mac and cheese, which will be linked down below for y'all, and then some fresh veggies. Thursday night is the night that the kids have martial arts, so we always like to do easy crock pot meals, and the kids requested that we do Meatball Subs again. I shared this pretty recently, so I didn't feel like filming me make it again. You just throw some frozen meatballs into the crock pot with some marinara sauce and let it cook on low for a couple hours, like 4 to 6 hours. And if you want to, you can cook the meatballs beforehand. I like to throw them in the air fryer for a couple of minutes, but then that's it. You come home, you throw the meatballs on some bread with some mozzarella cheese, throw it in the toaster oven, let it melt the cheese, and then we had a salad on the side. Delicious and super easy. But that is going to be it for this week's What's for Dinner. As always, any recipes that I mentioned are in the description box down below. Let me know in the comments if you plan on trying any of these recipes, and let me know if you made it all the way to the end. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a good week, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!